Walz is in line with the progressive left agenda, and his record on immigration has really been, as a congressman, he was against the wall like every Democrat. School choice is a top issue in Texas. If we don't allow for competition and innovation within the education marketplace, we are going to set up future generations of Texans to be less prosperous, less industrious, and have a lesser future. Texas is only trending further to the right. People like their cost of living, their low taxes here, and that's because of our Republican-led state and fiscal responsibility.
Joining me right now is Genevieve Collins, the Texas Director of Americans for Prosperity. Genevieve, welcome.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, although a vice presidential selection traditionally has zero influence on a general election, when a candidate announces their running mate, it generates a lot of buzz, so we'll roll with it. Kamala Harris just announced Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. His record has been dissected around the clock for much of the past couple of days, and it perfectly aligns with much of the extreme left wish lists. Now, you have a new campaign, Freedom is Bigger in Texas, and one of the core pillars is stopping illegal immigration. Tell us what you know about Walz and his stance on immigration, why it is problematic for both Texans and Americans overall.
Well, Walz is in line with the progressive left agenda. He's on record saying, we need to, when someone's a socialist, we need to call it neighborliness. And when people tell you who they are, you should believe them. And his record on immigration has really been, as a congressman, he was against the wall like every Democrat. But what that really shows is not only a lack of understanding of what's happening at the southern border, but how there's a lack of conversation with Customs and Border Protection, because Border Patrol has advocated and asked for a structure, a wall. They need that infrastructure to slow the massive numbers of illegal immigrants flooding into our country and buy them time. And his record just continues to prove that even though immigration and illegal immigration is a top 2 issue in this country, that the Democrats and their agenda have no interest in solving this issue.
And in addition to immigration, Walz also aligns with Kamala in opposing school choice and embraces the increasingly unpopular Biden/Kamalanomics, whatever you want to refer to it as. I think everybody knows what that means at this point. If he were to become vice president, what impact would these two issues in particular have on the people of Texas specifically?
Well, right now, let's talk about education. In Texas, 52% of Texas students can read on grade level, and only 43% of those students can do math on grade level. And these are kids in public schools. And if we don't allow for competition and innovation within the education marketplace, we are going to set up future generations of Texans to be less prosperous, less industrious, and have a lesser future. That's not what we want, right? And so school choice is a top issue in Texas. It's an exciting time because we've only been working on this issue for 40 years, and hopefully next year in the state legislature, we will pass this. What this Harris-Walz agenda could look like is more power into the teachers' unions. Texas is not a teacher union state. However, it's putting more power into the hands of administrators and not teachers, parents, or students. So that's a huge issue. And then we can see that Bidenomics has just flat out not worked. And Kamala is going to have to own her part of Bidenomics because she's touted that this has been a fabulous economic agenda. Well, the last time I checked, for the last 4 years, gas prices are up, grocery prices are up, housing prices are up, and seniors can't afford their medications or can't afford to move. So when you're looking at that ecosystem of 4 years on top of what we've all just seen happen this week with the threat of a recession, the market's going crazy, Kamala's economic agenda and Walz's economic agenda are going to be bad for America and worse off for the world.
And I think people see through that no matter how much she tries to distance herself from the Biden administration and his record. She's pretty much tied to that at the hip. So let's just paint this picture here for a second. The top 2 issues for voters this year, as you just mentioned, are immigration and the economy. They really aren't even 1 and 2, but they're more so 1A and 1B. People care about those issues more than anything pretty much equally. Yet the tickets the Democrats just locked in is comprised of two candidates who are absolutely terrible at preventing illegal immigration. In fact, they seem to want more of it. And they continue to act as if everything is perfectly fine for America economically, as you just mentioned. So despite how obvious it is that they not only want to retain power for themselves, but also desperately want to keep President Trump from ever holding office again, it seems all of their actions are leading voters towards Trump and away from themselves. And this is quite obvious. So my question for you is, why are they continuing to do things to their own political detriment? Is it incompetence? Is it an irrational commitment to their radical left agenda? Or is it perhaps the potential for millions of illegals to vote in this upcoming election and save them? What is the driving force behind them in your mind?
Well, isn't that the million-dollar question? Ideally, I mean, in my opinion, this is a strict adherence to an ideological agenda that does not adhere to our Constitution and the moral fabric of our nation. You know, when Walz made Minnesota a sanctuary state for illegal immigration, that goes against the core values and moral fabric of this nation. And I don't see that when, Minnesota was burning during the riots, when the economy has basically been on fire in the wrong way for families, and when we're giving more benefits to illegal immigrants than American citizens, I don't see that there's anything other than just a strict adherence to this ideological agenda that makes any sense as to why they stay so focused on this. I think that they're pushing many more voters to Trump and to the right, but they seem to be absolutely convinced that their way is the only way.
And that's what's concerning to me, and I think it should be concerning for all people who plan on voting for President Trump, supporters of President Trump, because on the surface, yes, you would love this pick of Walz because he's radical left, and we know that that's not where the center of the country is. At the same time, we know how badly they want to retain power. So when they do things that make that less likely in theory, it certainly raised some red flags about what might be going on down the line. So we'll have to see. There's been a couple of documents released lately about potential issues with the election from, the FBI just released something last week about, there might be some issues with, reporting the results, but fear not, you could trust us when they come. So there's obviously a lot of things that we have to see play out. Now, the topic of illegal immigration is obviously a political one, especially over the past decade now. However, more important than the effect, I should say, it has on jobs and the overall economy, is that it truly poses a serious safety threat in terms of national security. Many experienced immigration experts have warned about the potential for an attack on American soil to occur at any moment, thanks to the remarkable number of terrorists who have illegally entered the U.S. and remain here. Being that, excuse me. Sorry about that. You hear me? Being that this is such a pivotal election cycle that has already seen so many unprecedented developments up to this point, how concerned are you about the illegal alien crisis culminating in a potential catastrophe between now and November 5th? Is that something you're concerned about?
I mean, no one wants to think that a threat can happen on American soil. And unfortunately, during this Biden-Harris administration, we've had 11 million people illegally enter our country with over 2 to 3 million what we call gotaways, right? These are people that have vanished into thin air once they've entered this country. We don't know who they are, and we're seeing a huge influx here at the southern border of folks from Eastern Europe, throughout Asia, throughout the Middle East. This is not just massive caravans through Central and South America that are coming through our southern border. So there is a huge threat. I mean, God willing, I don't want to put that out there in the universe that we're poised for a domestic threat, but there's certainly that chance. However, I believe that our law enforcement, certainly the National Guard, the Texas National Guard, Customs and Border Protection, they're doing everything they can to keep us safe here in Texas and throughout the nation.
Now, as a Texas native, I do want to ask you something that is always so interesting to me every general election. We always hear in the media that it's not that they expect it to vote blue, but there's always this feel or this perception that Texas is trending somehow blue, or they call it purple, despite the fact that, as we just discussed, the center of the country does not like this shift to the radical left by the Democrat Party. So I want to hear from you. Where are the hearts of Texans? Do you buy into that at all, that there's somehow is this shift or an openness to Democrat policies, or do you think that is more of a misrepresentation by the media?
It's an absolute misrepresentation by the mainstream media and an overestimation of Democrat dollars pouring into Texas that it can change the hearts and minds of Texans. The thing about Texans is that we love our state. We're probably the most annoying state in the country because we talk about how great Texas is all the time and how we want to, how we cherish that, but also how we want to keep that. And that doesn't mean that we're not welcoming to all of the California and New York refugees seeking asylum in Texas for better tax policy. But it really just shows that Texas is only trending further to the right. You can look at every statewide general election. You can look at even the primary electorate. Elections are moving further to the right. People are very conservative here. We have seen and taken the biggest brunt of the illegal immigration crisis. And what Governor Abbott did this year, really making sure that every state felt the burden of this Biden-Harris illegal immigration crisis, sending illegal immigrants to sanctuary states like Minnesota or sanctuary cities like Chicago and New York. They have to share the burden, and now every state is a border state. So here, our economy is like the 7th largest economy in the world. So from an economic standpoint, we're doing pretty good. People like their cost of living, their low taxes here, and that's because of our Republican-led state and fiscal responsibility. So the state is continuing to turn more red.
And I hope for your sake, the California and New York defectors are not bringing their Democrat voting habits with them, because that would be obviously a very bad thing. But I tend to agree with you, not that I'm from the state of Texas, but I always had the impression that that was probably nonsense and there really wasn't any massive shift to the left going on. Before we let you go, I'd like to give you the chance to share with our listeners anything that Freedom is Bigger in Texas is actively working on, or anything that you'd like to share with us. So tell us what's going on over there.
Yeah, so at Americans for Prosperity here in Texas, we are launching our Freedom is Bigger in Texas campaign. And this is really it's a rallying cry to engage more Texans to be a part of the community and policy and political process. We want to inspire people to lift up their voices to be the change that they want to see. Because as Texans, we know that when freedom is bigger here, we are the beacon for the rest of the country, if not the world. And this is just a great opportunity for us to showcase that when freedom, opportunity, and prosperity meet with policy that is good for all Texans, everyone wins. And that's what we're trying to make sure everyone's connected to here in the state.
It's so great to hear. Very important work that you have going on over there. So Genevieve, thank you so much for joining me today. It was great to finally get to talk to you, and I hope to do this again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to all of our listeners out there, thanks for joining us. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any breaking AMAC content. I'm Matt Kane. Until next time.
We are proud to have First Fidelity Reserve as our official bullion and rare coin partner, as they have supported AMAC for over a decade. Call First Fidelity Reserve 800-336-1630. That's 800-336-1630 and get your free 38-page precious metals guide today.